All right, thanks, Matt. I like that Halloween idea. It gives me a good idea for a theme for the next webinar. Um, but welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining the latest installment of Cutler's Cybersecurity Education Series. I thought that this would be a good time to do a little spring cleaning on our digital files and devices. We've got our taxes done, the sun is out, the flowers are blooming, and we are ready to clean house, so to speak. And this practice is also recommended by the National Cybersecurity Alliance, and they are quoted as saying, by conducting a digital spring cleaning and taking care of overdue online maintenance, you will be more secure against losing personal information and becoming a victim of identity theft. They also say that the Equifax breach, which happened in September of last year, hit nearly 148 million Americans, exposing their most sensitive personal data. It remains the largest breach of its kind, and the average person is not doing enough to protect themselves. A recent survey indicated that 50% of Americans still have not checked their credit reports since this breach, and they recommend that if you are in that 50% that has not, you should take action immediately. Since we keep so much of our personal information on our computers and mobile devices, a spring cleaning will help keep your valuable information more secure and protect you against identity theft, which continues to be a top online safety concern. All right, so now that we all feel good about showing up and doing this, let's get started on the cleaning. And the first thing we're going to do is a 3-step scrubbing process, with the first step being delete. And by this, I mean to go through your phone and delete any unused apps. And as I was following this process just last week in preparation for this presentation, I realized I was definitely guilty of having several unused and unnecessary apps on my phone. You know, things like the Disneyland app. I don't need that clogging up my phone all year when I'm not at the park, or the March Madness Bracket Challenge app. I'll just re-download it next year when the tournament starts again. And so doing this will save memory on your phone, make it run faster, and be more aesthetically pleasing. Not to mention, when you download certain apps, like the Disneyland app, you most likely give them access to your location and permission to track you and store the data. So things that you have to say yes to in order to enable the features of the app in the beginning. So while things like that can be useful when you're actually using the app, most apps like this will keep running in the background and continue to track your location and store the data even if you're not using it. So even though you visited Disneyland last summer, it's been tracking your location and gathering data on you ever since you left the Magic Kingdom. So just something to be aware of. And I will specify that when I say delete, I really mean uninstall. I know in my previous phone, which I think was a Samsung Galaxy S6, I know that when I deleted the app by just dragging the app icon to the trash can, it was actually only deleting the icon from my home screen, but not actually taking the program off my phone. So later I learned that I actually had to go into settings and select uninstall to get it to actually go away. So just be mindful of that as well. And of course, while you're cleaning things up, make sure the apps that you do use on a regular basis are all up to date and that your operating system is running the most recent version. All right, so the second step of our cleaning process is to unsubscribe. And this one is one of my favorites because I recently found myself being bombarded with promotions daily, and sometimes even multiple times per day, from companies alerting me of can't miss sales opportunities or things of the like. So I was used to just selecting all and hitting delete until I decided to take a stand and purge. So it took me about 15 minutes to go through all of the promotional emails I was receiving to either unsubscribe completely or at least change the settings to once a month for the sites that I did still want to hear from occasionally. And it has made things so much nicer. So now that I know that when I have 3 or 4 new emails in my inbox, they're probably important emails that I actually want to read instead of just ads. And now a word of caution in this exercise is to remember to be mindful of phish emails. And these, of course, are emails created by hackers to mimic real emails that are sent by companies to get you to click on a malicious link or virus. So with your mouse, you'll want to hover over that unsubscribe link to make sure it's taking you to a legitimate website. And for those of you that are watching the slides, I've taken a screenshot of what it looks like when you hover over the unsubscribe link. And you can see the web address that this particular one is sending me to starts with HTTPS, which is always a good sign. And it's sending me to the main website, and then with a /unsubscribe. And there are no suspicious looking redirects anywhere. So this one looks good to go ahead and click on if I wanted to unsubscribe. All right. And the last step on our scrub list is to fortify. And this means to make your online accounts hard to hack by enabling the strongest authentication tools possible. Most sites these days will have at the least a two-factor authentication option where you can have a one-time code sent to your phone each time you log in. So definitely do this on all sites that offer it, especially for the sites that have personal information like banking and credit card logins, and sites where you might have saved credit card information like Amazon or an airline login. Now the jury is still out on biometrics, meaning voice recognition, face scans, fingerprints, etc. Just because this technology is so new and there hasn't been enough time to test and research it, a lot of the cybersecurity experts are putting their opinions on this on hold for now. But I predict we will be seeing a lot more of this as an option for logging in to sites as the technology gets better and more secure. All right, so now that we've done our surface scrub, the next step of our spring cleaning is to get all the stuff that we can't necessarily see on the surface. So this is the part where we lift up the panel on the stovetop and see all the little crumbs that have fallen through the burners. And to do this digitally, we're going to check to see if you've been pwned. And in internet slang, that basically means owned, meaning your email or password has been involved in a data breach. I like this site because it will let you know if your email has been involved in a data breach, even if the company didn't alert you itself. Most of the big companies that have had data breaches recently, like Target, Home Depot, LinkedIn, they have sent emails to the people that were affected. But some of the smaller companies slip through the cracks or may have gone to your junk email or anything like that. So this site will just let you know anything that you missed. Now, if any of you were on my webinar from May of last year, you saw me use Cutler's CEO Matt Patton as my guinea pig for the TruePeopleSearch.com test, where we learned all kinds of fun information about Matt and his family that was available by public record. So for this one, I thought I would use Matt again, but surprisingly, when I went to check the site using his personal email, the search came back clean. So congratulations on that, Matt.
Thank you, Jessica.
You're welcome. So of course I took the next best thing, his brother, Eric Patton. So to do this, I went to www.haveibeenpwned.com, and that's pwned spelled P-W-N-E-D, so like owned, except instead of an O, it's a P. And I put in Eric's email address. Now, in my opinion, Eric had a relatively clean report with only 3 hits. I would have thought he'd have more since he actually has a Yahoo email address for his personal email. And Yahoo itself was hacked back in 2014, and 500 million users' information was stolen, although we didn't find out about it until 2016, and then Yahoo got fined $35 million by the SEC for not disclosing the breach sooner, but of course that's a completely different story. So anyway, back to Eric and his email address. I've got a picture of the report here, and it shows us that Eric's email address has been involved in 3 data breaches, LinkedIn, Discus, and Tumblr. and then it will give you a little description of the breach and how many accounts were involved. And it also tells you which data exactly was compromised. So in Eric's case, it was his email addresses and passwords with LinkedIn and Tumblr, and then also with Discus, it was his username as well. So with this exercise, just take a minute to check your email address to see which, if any, breaches you have been a victim of. And at the very least, you will want to change your login information for the sites on the report. And if you're not already using one, I will say once again that I encourage you to use a password manager. This just makes your life so much easier, where all you have to do is remember your one master password, and then the site will store all of your different complicated passwords for all of your different logins. I personally use LastPass. The Pwned site has a deal with 1Password, which is a pretty good one. A Dashlane is another option. And remember, when you're creating your password, using a long passphrase is actually better practice for creating a strong password than using a shorter password that may be a complicated jumble of letters and numbers. So for example, you can take your favorite line in a song or the first line in your favorite book, and you'll want to change one or two words so it doesn't make complete sense. So for instance, you can say, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of slimes." So that right there is a 41-character password that would be pretty easy to remember and very difficult for hackers to crack. So just a little tip there on password creation. So well, this leads us into our last segment, which is to review, refresh, and report. So piggybacking off of the idea to change your breach site passwords, you'll also want to do this for your Wi-Fi router password as well. If you haven't changed that in a long time, or if it's a really easy password, give it a review and a refresh. And the same goes for your phone Wi-Fi hotspot password as well. I create a new password for my Wi-Fi hotspot every time I create a new one. And a lot of the new routers these days will have the ability to connect to an app on your phone where you can easily see all of the devices that are currently connected to your Wi-Fi, and you can customize access. So this is helpful to check every once in a while to make sure that only your families or other approved devices are connected to your Wi-Fi. So if you live close to your neighbors or in an apartment complex, it might be easy for someone to connect to your Wi-Fi without your knowledge if you have loose security measures. With these apps, you can also create new guest networks on the spot, which is now recommended. So if you're going to have a party or host house guests, you should create a new guest Wi-Fi connection that is separate than your personal family connection. It just makes things that much more secure, and the new technology is making it really easy. And there is also usually a handy feature that allows you to pause network access for certain devices, or to allow access only during certain time periods. So this will work well for kids if you want to limit their screen time, or maybe for incentive to finish their homework or chores. You can say, no Wi-Fi access until 7 p.m. or, I'll resume your access once you take out the trash, things like that. So the second thing you'll want to do is to review your privacy policy and settings on social media sites or other apps that you use frequently or share information on. And you may have recently received a lot of those "we've made changes to our privacy policy" emails recently because of a sweeping new legislation from the European Union called the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR, which actually goes into effect in a couple days here on May 25th. So this is a great piece of legislation for individuals because it gives them more control over their personal data by forcing companies to make sure that the way they collect, process, and store data is safe. And even though it is an EU regulation, a lot of US companies will be affected since the terms of the law encompass any organization that holds or uses data on people inside the European Union, regardless on where the company is based. So now this doesn't necessarily mean that companies can't collect data. It just means that they have to make it a lot more clear about which data they are collecting, and they have to obtain the individual's consent that comes in the form of a clear request that is written in plain language. So that means that they can't hide this information in those, big, long, general terms and conditions that no one ever reads. And companies also have to prove that they have a lawful basis for collecting data, and they have to specify how they are storing it and for how long. So this, of course, is coming off the heels of the Cambridge Analytica scandal with Facebook and other social media sites, where we all learned just how much companies were doing without our consent or knowledge. So companies like Cambridge Analytica are really dangerous and are becoming a fast-growing and very effective form of cyber threat. I recently went to a national compliance conference, and the cybersecurity keynote speaker there said that disinformation campaigns, which are what companies like Cambridge are using our data for, are, to him, the scariest threat out there at the moment. They are mostly run by foreign agencies and have the ability to infiltrate thousands of people through social media. So this time around, instead of just clicking, I agree in these new privacy policies when you get them, I encourage you to poke around and see how you can further customize your settings, as this GDPR is the first step in a hopefully global movement of data and privacy protection. All right, and the final section, which is report, means that you should try to report any scams you come across to the Better Business Bureau Scam Tracker or the Internet Crime Complaint Center. Just last year alone, more than 47,000 reports were filed with the Better Business Bureau, and an incredible 301,580 complaints were filed with the Internet Crime Complaint Center, with reported losses exceeding $1.4 billion. That was just in 2017. So I know that this one isn't really a simple spring cleaning, set it and forget it type of tip, but perhaps you can start a running list of all the scams that you come across and then start to submit them when they come up. If you practice it enough, it might just become second nature, like see a scam, send a report. It is unfortunate how true it is that this may actually happen so frequently that it does in fact become second nature. I know that the news usually reports on the big data breaches that affect hundreds of millions of people. Those are the ones that get the headlines. But the research shows that there are actually about 1,500 data breaches each year on average. So the thought is that if we all keep sending them as much information as possible, then we may be able to stop these scams before they become mainstream, or at least find ways to make everyone more secure. All right, well, that is actually all that I have for you today. As always, if you do come up with any questions, feel free to call or email me. If you missed any of my previous webinars, they are up on our website, cutler.com, in the commentary section. And this one will be up there as well in the next day or two. And unless we've had any questions come in, I will just say thank you for joining, and I hope you have a great day.
Jessica, thank you. Great job today. Appreciate your insights on cybersecurity and our spring cleaning exercise. To those of you that joined us, we appreciate you coming. And as Jessica said, we will get this posted on the website in the next 2 days. Thank you very much, and have a great day.